brought it back up.
I see you brought back up. It's not the SWAT.
They're pretty good. Well, this is an honor. I met and spoken with a number of you individually, but I don't think I've ever had an opportunity to speak to all of you collectively, so I thank you for that opportunity. This afternoon, I've had the privilege of reading a memo from Mr. Huckleberry regarding our budget and regarding strategies to fight some of the issues that are in front of us. And I get it. We know that when the state reaches deep into our pockets and takes away our money to satisfy the balancing of their budget, it hurts. I understand that. I understand firsthand, actually, the loss of revenue streams when we look at our federal grants and our state aids. Those programs diminishing, dissipating, going away slowly, but surely. And I also understand, more importantly, when Mr. Huckleberry writes and emphatically, we're on our own. And I think when he says the word we, I believe he includes the Pima County Sheriff's Department, because we understand that we are a large part of Pima County, not only we're a large part of this community. So I get that. And I know that. $23 million hurts. It's a hard hit for anybody. And so I come to you today, probably to the surprise of some of my staff behind me, not to ask you for $145,322,095.
You're going to let them ask?
They'll have an opportunity, because I will be brief. Sorry, Ray, I'll be brief, Ray. Because I kind of new at this. This is my first time with this process, and as Mr. Huckleberry explains, it's pretty complex. But I'm a pretty simple man, and I get that we need to be balanced in our budget. So we have to do what we can to get there. The Sheriff's Department is committed to that. We know and I understand, maybe I'm wrong, but if I got this right, I don't mean to be presumptive or rude and imply what your job is, but I kind of believe that you tell us what our budget is. And our role, the Sheriff's Department role, my role, is to get under that budget. And we will do that, whatever it takes. We've seen hard times before. This department has always worked well with others in the county and outside the county. Whatever it takes, we'll be there. But having said that, I think there's 3 areas of concern that we're faced as a department this upcoming year. And they're critical areas. They're critical to our operation. They're mission essential. 1, our IT system this year is coming to an end of life cycle, I'm told. I'm told that cost will be $2.6 million. I don't care how big or small you are as a corporation, private or public. If you don't have a sound IT system, you're not going to be efficient in today's world. 2, I think Mr. Huckleberry clearly points out, and accurately I might add, of course almost everything he points to is pretty accurate, cost of employee-related expenses are going up. They're rising, we all know that. Mr. Ron G. from our finance section manager tells me that this next year we'll see an increase in the Sheriff's Department of employee-related expenses, pensions, health insurances, whatnot, of $5.1 million. And finally, probably more critical to me, more important to me, is my staff compensation. This past year, as chief deputy, I've been all over, had an opportunity to see some great work and some great people. And we do a lot of great things. But I think I was mostly impressed by two things that we do. One is we hire so great. We hire some of the best people, best men and women this county has to offer. I have no doubts. I know you work with them. The other is we train them. Probably the best training process I do. In fact, our training staff oftentimes is asked to go outside the state to train others. And what a shame it would be to lose those young men and women we have trained and hired, some of the best we have in this county, in this state, to the practices of hiring from other agencies. So I ask that you consider those hiring practices and remain competitive with those who hire outside to help us retain our staff. You know, it's simple. Police work is really pretty easy. So you call 911 and we respond to calls for service. It's really, that's the gist. But our deputies, when you have that heart, that compassion, the ability to respond with concern for your community, the community you live in, play and work. When you have that feeling, that's priceless. And so, we get it, we understand it. We just want your support that we will do whatever it takes to get under budget. You just tell us what it is. I think Chief Wilson has a few words for you if you don't mind, or you may ask questions of me.
Madam, just real quickly,
Yes.
can you get us information on what your retention rate is? I mean, you're talking about losing good people that you trained, and you have one of the sheriff's department is one of the finest teams I think I've seen, law enforcement team across the nation. So we certainly value each and every one of your employees, but that kind of information would be helpful.
Well, I can tell you real quick, like just minutes ago we received, and Chief Radke has probably better numbers than I do, but just a few
No,
minutes.
he was playing back
Push
up.
me out of the way.
I was told to move out of the way if I needed to. Madam Chair, members of the board, Mr. Huckleberry, Chris Radke, I'm the Administrative Bureau Chief of the Union County Sheriff's Department. We actually do pretty smart work with the Sheriff's Department. I think we have some of the best managers out there. We do a very good job. It's a very lean department. Back in 2008, we got very lean because our budget got cut. We remain lean. We do. Our budget is a shoestring budget, just as many other departments in the counties are. Our attrition for deputy sheriffs right now, going back the past 12 months, we calculated this just about 2 weeks ago, is 1.5 deputy per week. Corrections officers is 4.5 corrections officers per, not per week, per pay period. Let me correct myself. And to give an example of what we experience over periods of time, we started an academy for deputy sheriff the end of January. Since that date, we have lost 15 deputy sheriffs, 15 in a matter of 2 months for various things. Well, I think two left for outside agencies, some left for family reasons, some got fired, some got promoted, but in all, it's 1.5 attrition rate for deputy sheriffs and 3 times that for corrections officers, which leads to our vacancy savings. That's a big part of how we're going to get the 2% cut next year, reducing our budget. And with the Sheriff's Department, that vacancy savings is really in the area of deputy sheriffs and corrections officers. It's not that we have a vacant position we can hire tomorrow we lose a deputy. Our academies are every 9 to 10 months. We lost 15 deputies in the last 2 months. We'll have vacancy savings until September, until we hire again. And we're going to continue losing deputy sheriffs every pay period until then. Our vacancy savings on the trend will last 12 months on deputy sheriffs. That's about 18 per, or close to 30 by the time we start and end an academy. And we looking at vacancy savings of like 20, which is about $2 million. So just that 15 we lost now, if you look at that over and annualize that, that's $1.5 million. So that's the majority of our vacancy savings for next year.
Madam Chair, Supervisor Miller.
I would like to request a distribution analysis of your deputies by salary, because I assume that is part of the reason that you're losing them after you invest all of this money into the training. And I've been hearing this for a while, the last few years, is that we have deputies, and because of county budget cuts, we're still at the same salary or not much different salary than they were 5 or 6 years ago. So that's why I'd like to see a distribution of the number of deputies in each salary bracket so that we can look at that, because when we're losing, we're investing all of this money, and I'm sure you probably, another thing I would like are the costs that you invest in training these deputies, the costs of putting them through the academies, and how much we are losing by losing these deputies that have, that have not gotten the salary increases that they deserve. And as Supervisor Bronson said, one of the best sheriff's departments in the country, and also they're putting their lives on the line every day for us. And so if we have, I would like to see the lower end, maybe if we could do something there, and look at, moving some of these deputies up so that we aren't losing them and losing money in the long run. I mean, we're cutting off our nose to spite our face by keeping these deputies at these lower salary levels. And I know it's been really a tough few years, but we have got to do something, because we're going to lose money in the long run, and also the morale, I'm sure, without raises for 6 or 7 years, or very small raises, are probably having an impact. Is it possible to get that distribution?
Absolutely. We actually calculate roughly to hire and train a deputy sheriff over that 10-month period of time, about $104,000 or $5,000. That's from salary, from training, from what it costs us to train a deputy. That's just for the 10 months. Much like the county attorney's office, where Mr. Wall spoke on her behalf, on her department, her budget, is it's really priceless when you lose a deputy who's a grown-up deputy. I really consider that a deputy who's been out there for 5 years. They know the trade. They're a journeyman as a deputy sheriff. And we start losing those deputies, and you lose not just the salary, not the investment of training over many, many years, over that 5-year period of time. You lose that knowledge base, the experience, the things you cannot put a price tag on. And that only goes for a deputy sheriff. We will also get you that same information for the corrections folks too, because they're in the same position. I can tell you our deputy sheriffs have not had a step increase since 2008 in their step plan. But that's, they got the same raises that the rest of Pima County, and the other law enforcement agencies out there are stagnant too, to be perfectly honest with you. But we will get you that information.
Do we have analyses of similar counties, similar size in various states, and also in Maricopa, wherever? I think I've heard from the county attorney's office, but also the sheriff's department. I assume we're losing deputies to Maricopa, Canal, and the like. That's what I've been hearing. Is that the case?
Believe it or not, we saw this coming about 2 years back. So we've been keeping a list of every deputy who leaves that goes to a different agency. We know where they go to. We know how much time and tenure they had with the department when they left. And right now, things are just going to get worse. Oro Valley's already recruited for lateral hires and giving them vacation and sick time to move over. We don't typically lose to the Phoenix area, but that's where the big money is. That's where they're going to be losing 1,000 cops in the Phoenix area due to the drop. If nobody's aware of what that is, it's a retirement system. You have to leave at the end of 5 years. And the Tucson Police Department has experienced about 100 cops lost in this fiscal year or this calendar year. So we're going to be headhunting, and we hire the best, we train the best, and we continue to train the best. And we just got an email last night from a deputy sheriff who left us. He was an EOD tech, which is a huge expense to train the EOD tech. His name was Jesse Lane. We got an email from him. He went to Austin, Texas to be a cop there. And he said he is so far above, head and shoulders above cops there because of the training we provided him in Austin, Texas.
He was just ready to take us.
For the training.
And coincidentally, while we were sitting here, I just got an email that one of our deputies is resigning. So it's not funny, but it's just.
What was it you just said about Maricopa? You said that there's some sort of a hole up
The
there.
drop, they're talking about the drop.
Listen, let me say this, that Phoenix is reporting at the last powwow, they reported that they're going to be looking for 200 to 250 officers in the next year or two from the drop or retirement program. DPS was going to be looking for another 300 I mean, the numbers just get overwhelming in that there's no way they can possibly recruit or hire that many unless they go at unemployment agencies.
Yes.
And TDB courses, I think they gave a number of 164 is what they said.
So there's competition out there for officers.
There is.
Absolutely.
So that would be very helpful if you could provide that.
We'll get all that to you
Okay.
in the report, Mr. Huckleberry.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Any further questions of Chief Radke? Chief Wilson?
Good afternoon. I was asked to briefly talk to you about some of our IT needs, particularly the supplemental budget request, and as the human resources are important to our mission accomplishment, so are our computing resources. I'm not going to cover a lot really on the supplemental request other than to tell you that it amounts to $2.8 million for upgrades and improvements for 10 specific projects that were outlined in the budget submittal. Some are planned for regulatory compliance, for access to things like the Criminal Justice Information System, which is essential to our mission. But all of the projects next year are secondary to completion of our fiscal year 14-15 projects. And it's important that you know what the status of those are, because it appears that some of those might be pushed into the next fiscal year at this stage. And it's important that you know that we've not been able to move several of those projects forward. And each of those are mission critical and have a higher priority to the department than all of the projects that we plan in the supplemental request for next year. In November of this year, you know that the board approved the transfer of $1.7 million to the Information Technology Internal Service Fund to replace some IT infrastructure and to replace some hardware for the Sheriff's Department and other department infrastructure needs. About $1 million of that was allocated to the Sheriff's Department. $700,000 of that was allocated towards implementing the enterprise software agreement for other departments. Following that, the department actually had to commit an additional $183,000 from our general fund budget to cover a cost variance that would have exceeded the $1 million allocation. Essentially, we had 4 projects. The one that was the highest priority for us was upgrading our Cisco network, which is approximately 12 years old now, and supports access to CJIS and data sharing for multiple county justice departments. The leasing arrangement for replacement of that equipment has not yet been completed, and thus procurement has not been initiated. We also have a project to replace about 770 or so desktop, laptop, and mobile data computers. Those were to be a part of the leasing program that the board had approved earlier in the year as well. All of those devices are running an obsolete Windows XP operating system and exposing us to increased security risks and regulatory.
They're no longer with XP, they're no longer providing
updates.
Updates.
We're not getting software updates, security patches, or anything along those lines. That leasing program has, as I understand, been suspended, and the DOs for those acquisitions canceled. Additionally, we had a project to establish a virtual PC environment to replace a number of the Blade computers that we've been using for about 8 years. That leased hardware is currently stored. We have received it. It's awaiting some changes to its configuration, and the state that it arrived in, it wasn't as we had ordered it. And then lastly, the 4th project was the implementation of the enterprise software licensing. And you'll recall that was proposed by ITD to promote standardization and periodic updates to the software. That agreement was executed at the beginning of the fiscal year, estimated cost to the sheriff of $273,000. To date, we've received no tangible benefit from that. The mechanism to distribute the updates is dependent on the network upgrades that are not in place yet, and the obsolete PCs that have not been replaced don't meet the minimum hardware requirements for the newer software. We think, at least from our perspective, that those projects are somewhat impeded because we don't have operational control over the equipment procurement or the expenditures from the IT Internal Service Fund. As a result, we currently have workstations that don't have functional computers in them, for instance, in some of the housing units of the jail. We are cannibalizing and reassigning underutilized equipment to other areas to replace dead or dying equipment. and we are beginning to suffer some unplanned outages of network service. So the purpose of briefing you on that is to tell you that those critical projects are essential to our mission. If they're not completed this fiscal year, then those will undoubtedly go into next fiscal year, and we'll have to find some funding to accomplish those even before we get to the ones that were in our supplemental request. And with that, I'd be happy to take any questions.
And can we get a copy of your remarks?
Certainly.
Thank you. Any questions for the Chief?
Thank you, Paul.
Thank you,
Thank you.
Chief Wilson.
Did you have any other questions? You
Any
want copies of my
questions for-
remarks?
Chief Niles?
Thank you. Thank you all very much.
No, thank you. Thank you for an excellent presentation.
Thank you.
That brings us to the end of the presentation.